What it do? Yo man, listen. Today we're predicting. Let's get right into it. Before we do that, I want to say that all is well. The duck era is over. Very few of you will actually get that reference, but for those of you who do, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you who don't, worry not. All that matters is that I am in a great mood. And for old time's sake, I am making this video to predict what the Emperor's Children faction might look like when it eventually comes to tacticus. And I do want to say I appreciate every single one of you. I received a lot of love after the Nandi video. You guys are appreciated. I see you guys. Without further ado, let's get right into it. You might be asking yourself, hey Draupnir, did you not make this video already? Are you running out of ideas? And you're absolutely right. Jokes aside, no. Some things have changed. Since I made that video, the codex fully came out, and I do think that despite this video being significantly more detailed than that video, there are still some relevant points. For example, we can still use other chaos factions as points of reference to make predictions as to what the roster might look like in Tacticus. It's also important to understand the similarity between World Leaders and Emperor's Children when it comes to what models we might see. I do want to clarify again, I can't see the future. I am simply making educated guesses, and more importantly, I get to yap about 40k, which I love doing. So, just like last time, let's go over the mono god factions. For those of you who don't, because every video is someone's first, mono god factions refers to chaos factions, which pray to one god specifically. That is Death Guard, who pray to Nurgle, World Leaders, who pray to Khorne, and Thousand Sons, who pray to Tzeentch. The last faction, the last god that's remaining, is Slaanesh, and their associated faction is Emperor's Children. Now, looking at Death Guard, World Leaders, and Thousand Sons, we can make certain predictions as to what Emperor's Children might entail. First thing, it's heralds. Every god has an herald, so it is safe to assume that Emperor's Children will get a herald. Terminators, all chaos factions have terminators. I didn't put a picture here, however, the Chaos Space Marine, the Black Legion faction, has Angrax, that is also a Terminator. The newer models, this isn't a very strong point for this faction, I will explain later. However, Games Workshop will probably want Snowprint to get newer models added to the game. And iconic things. This is a point I keep making about every single faction because it just keeps being right. So, heralds. As I said, there are four main chaos gods: Tzeentch, Nurgle, Khorne, and Slaanesh. Tzeentch has Ahriman as the herald, which is currently in the game. Nurgle has Typhus, which is again in the game. And Khorne has Karn the Betrayer, very creative naming convention by the way, but he's also in the game. So each god has their respective representative in Tacticus. So I think it is safe to assume when the mono god faction that represents Slaanesh gets added to the game, they will get their representative, their herald. And that is Lucius the Eternal, especially because he got this crazy new model, right? The old model looked kind of funky. I mean, this looks funky too with the tongue out and whatnot. But what I'm getting at is there's a cool new model. It's a god herald. So it is pretty safe to assume that Lucius the Eternal is coming to Tacticus. Now, usually I like to go look at the data sheet, be like, yeah, this is what's gonna do, this is what's gonna do. But if you look at his if you look at his data sheet right now, we'll see he doesn't have any shooting. He does have very respectable melee. He has a lot of small attacks into small targets, and he has a respectable amount of big attacks that are character focusing. He is relatively durable because of an invulnerable save and a feel no pain. Now, he has two rules. One is called a challenge worthy of skill. Each time this model attacks a target, character, monster, or walker. Walker is knights and whatnot, right? Like bipedal vehicles. So this won't be good into rhinos because they're not walkers, they're just vehicles. You can reroll the hit roll and you can reroll the wound roll. Now, this isn't something too uncommon. A lot of factions, such as Space Marines or Grey Knights, they have characters with special rules that say, hey, when you're fighting another character, you get to reroll the hit roll and the wound roll or whatever. So this isn't something too crazy. The second thing, Duelist's Hubris, at the start of the fight phase, if this model is not leading a unit, until the end of the phase, it has the fight first ability. This just means that he will fight before other models, other units, which is a pretty strong ability for tabletop. Now, as to how these will translate to tacticus, I have no idea. I will assume into characters you do more. However, in tacticus, everything is a character, aside from summons. So is it, oh, you'll deal extra damage into non-summons? But it also says monsters and walkers, which most of the raid bosses are. So what are you going to do? You're going to be like, oh, you actually have a damage buff against everything except summons? That might be it. One thing I do want to point out is the lore of this character. Now, usually, lore doesn't really matter for gameplay purposes. If it did, one Custodes character could solo the entire game. We don't talk about that. Now, the reason I want to highlight this is because this might maybe have gameplay implications for the character. So, in the lore, if you kill Lucius the Eternal, and you take pride in the fact that you have killed him, or you take pride in something that resulted directly or indirectly in his death, you become him. That's why it's called the Eternal, right? Because he has his own curse. Whenever he dies, let's say character A kills him, and character A is like, yeah, I'm pretty happy. And then Lucius just emerges out of his skin and becomes him. And it's still the same Lucius. Now, this is very tough to implement in tabletop, right? Like, how are you going to do this? Perhaps in Tacticus, it might be more approachable for Snowprint to do. One character I want to focus on is Titus, Lieutenant Titus, because he has that ability where dying is a part of his identity, where he gets defeated and then he comes back and he attacks, and that like stacks his abilities and whatnot. So that's pretty cool. Perhaps Lucius the Eternal will have a similar ability, especially with the introduction of the Genestealer Cult's faction, where there are the blips where it's like, oh, you know, they come back from the blips. I can totally see a passive ability where if an enemy kills Lucius the Eternal, they get a debuff, and when that enemy is defeated, Lucius the Eternal gets summoned with health remaining, or something along those lines. Terminators are something I do see coming, right? Every single Chaos faction does have Terminators. World Leaders has this dude. World Leaders have Rask. Death Guard have this dude. Thousand Suns has this dude, right? I'm forgetting the names. It's fine, whatever. There are a lot of characters. Now, the reason why Chaos loves their Terminators is because unlike the Imperium, they don't get new equipment in the lore. So they actually have to fight over who gets to have Terminator armor, which results in the best of the best usually having Terminator armor, which makes them even more terrifying because these are the best warriors Chaos has to offer, and they're wearing the best armor. When Roboute Guilliman was being resurrected in the lore, and a drop pod came in and Terminators came out, the Imperial characters were like, oh no, it's over. We lost. They're a big deal. Also, the fact that we have 4 Chaos factions in the game, and all 4 of them has one Terminator, at least one, because of course Typhus is another Terminator as well. is a fact of consideration, I think. So I am relatively confident that there might be a Terminator. Now, those of you who play tabletop or who are informed about the tabletop might say, hey Draupnir, Emperor's Children didn't get new Terminator models for 10th edition. You are absolutely right in saying this. Good on you for knowing. Now, Emperor's Children Terminators, I forget their names, but they are pretty cool. They have cool spears, they have like wings coming out of their chests, like they're pretty based. Now, unfortunately they didn't get new models for 10th edition 40k. Despite this, they are still a unit you can take in the codex. This is very similar to what happened in 9th edition and 10th edition for Red Butcher Terminators. Now, Red Butcher Terminators have always been a very iconic unit for the World Eaters faction. Unfortunately, Games Workshop says, hey, we have the 8-bound, so we're not going to really focus on the Terminators and giving them new models. So we are left in a situation where Terminators do exist for both Emperor's Children and the World Eaters, but they don't have their own special unit. Despite this, World Eaters do have a Terminator character in the form of Rask, which at least gives me hope that Emperor's Children will get a similar treatment. Now, iconic units. This is a less well-defined area, but in my opinion, certain units in 40k represent the faction identity so much that they are the first thing that comes to someone's mind when you mention the faction. For example, when I say World Eaters, someone who knows 40k will most likely say, oh hey, Khorne Berserkers, or Karn the Betrayer, because Karn is a Khorne Berserker after all. When I say Tyranids, as a Tyranids player myself, I will say, oh, Neurotrope, or I will say Tyranid Warrior. This was the case for Dante, right? When the last, what was it called? Not Sanguinius. Blood Angel's character wasn't revealed. I was saying, hey, we don't have a Golden Boy for Blood Angels. We don't have a Sanguinary Guard. We don't have the named characters. So we will definitely get one of these in the form of Dante or a Sanguinary Guard or whatnot, because this is so big. It's such a big part of the faction identity that we will most likely get this. For the Emperor's Children, the unit that comes to my mind as the most iconic unit is the Noise Marine. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because Noise Marines have always been pretty radical. Like, look at this guy. Like, this is the old model, this is the new model. But let's look at the old model for a second. He has an electric guitar with a bolter coming out, and he shoots out sonic waves, and he has a mohawk. What is going on? If this isn't the most radical model you've seen, I don't know what to tell you. If you look at the newer model, it's much more tame, but they do have this big, weird gun. Like, I don't know about these two, but this one reminds me of a bagpipe with the pipes coming out of the back. And, it's pretty cool. It's pretty illustrious and whatnot. And then the muzzle of the gun, like the edge of the gun, it's a face. Like, what is going on? So, personally, I think Noise Marines will definitely come to Tacticus. So, for those of you keeping track, that's Lucius the Eternal, a Terminator, and Noise Marines, right? Those are pretty straightforward. And I do feel confident in saying this. This isn't too dissimilar from what I said in the last time I made this video, but this time I feel way more confident because I can point at the models and be like, hey, we're getting these. Noise Marines, they have okay melee, they're mostly shooting. They are pretty cool, they're pretty rad. I would maybe think that they will get an ability called a Doom Siren, perhaps, because that is a pretty cool ability on the tabletop, at least it was. Now, new units, right? This is a point I made of being like, hey, when World Leaders got their new models in 9th edition, we saw those new models get added to Tacticus. Now, 2 of the 5 models in Tacticus are actually new models. The Jackal and the 8-bound. They were added in 9th edition and they got added to Tacticus. This is of course because Games Workshop wants to promote, or rather, Games Workshop wants Snowprint to promote their new models because it wouldn't make much sense to have a unit in Tacticus that doesn't exist on the tabletop. Unfortunately, Emperor's Children, they got a full range refresh. Everything is new. So the last 2 models, I have no idea what they're gonna be. Because I can't be like, oh yeah, this is a new model, so we'll have, like, bro, everything is a new model. Who knows what's gonna happen? But, or rather, however, I do have a creeping suspicion for a very specific model. Now, I wouldn't know what this is. I don't know what this is. I have no idea what it will be called. I don't know what it will do. But this here is one of the most iconic images for Emperor's Children. Now, this is like a pretty messed up model, like little just like random nonsense going around, like what even is going on here? Like leather straps, Batman things. It's cool, whatever. But the thing I want to focus on is the face. Now, personally, I am not a fan of unhelmeted models. I would much rather all my models have helmets on, right? That's how I build Death Guard, my Death Guard army in real life. So I don't really like this, but the whole bold person with a speaker in their mouth, I think that is so cool and so iconic that they should do it. Now, I can't say this with the same confidence as, oh, we'll definitely get Lucius to Eternal, but I am of the opinion that they should add this, right? Like, last time I put my own feelings into a prediction was me predicting me predicting that we will get a Hive Tyrant, and that didn't happen, right? I was wrong, unfortunately. But I would really love this if it came, because this looks so cool. Anyways, thank you for bearing with me. I do appreciate all the support. It does mean a lot to me. So thank you very much for watching the video. Have a great day and stay safe. Bye!